Hey, this is my check. I started this because I have a lot on my mind and I'm still figuring things out. If you're in the same place, let's get into it. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever had one of those moments where you're standing in the kitchen at 7 p.m., staring at a sink full of dishes, while simultaneously responding to work emails on your phone, mentally planning tomorrow's carpool schedule, and wondering if you remember to submit that permission slip? And then you suddenly think, how did I get here? Yeah, me too. And that's exactly where this conversation needs to start. Lately, I've been sitting with a question I don't think I've ever really asked myself before. Not honestly, anyways. Am I doing too much? Not in the dramatic, my life is falling apart way, but in that quiet 3 a.m. kind of honesty that's hard to explain when everyone is asleep and you are lying there thinking about all the moving pieces of your life. Because if I look at my life on paper, it does look like a lot. There's that full-time job that pays the bill and keep the lights on, two kids who need me at the same time, all the time. This podcast that started as a wild idea and is somehow becoming real. Cado events, this vision that I have for creating meaningful experiences that's still more dream than business plan. And then there are all those wellness concepts floating around in my head, connections I want to make, things I want to explore that don't fully make sense yet. Every saying, even saying it out loud, it sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Here's what I think happens to most of us. We grow up with this unspoken rule that we are supposed to pick one thing, find your passion, focus on it, get really, really good at it, stay in your lane. And listen, I understand the wisdom in that. There's something to be said for mastery, for going deep instead of wide. But what happens when your brain doesn't work that way? What happens when you staying in one lane feels like suffocating? Because here's the thing, part of me is genuinely excited about all of this. There's this electric energy that comes from exploring different things, from creating something from nothing, from imagining what something could become. It feels like I'm finally using part of my brain that have been asleep for years. But then there's this part of me, the practical side, the voice that sounds suspiciously like every well-meaning adult who ever asked, "But what's your backup plan?" That voice asks me questions like, is this realistic? Are you spreading yourself too thin? Shouldn't you just focus on one thing and do it properly? What if you're just having a quarter life crisis or midlife crisis or whatever life crisis this is? And I go back and forth between those two versions of myself constantly. Let me tell you about a specific Tuesday that really crystallized this internal conflict of me. It was one of those days where everything was supposed to go smoothly. I had my color-coded calendar, my carefully planned schedule, my life temporarily under control. Now here's what happened. 7 a.m., kids get ready for the school while I'm mentally rehearsing my presentation I have at 10. 8:30, I drop off the kids. Everything went perfectly fine. And I'm feeling like everything is great. It's gonna be a great day. 9:15 a.m., I'm sitting in my car in the work parking lot. I got a text from my friend Lily about a potential venue for Cado event concept that I'd mentioned her a few weeks ago. She's standing outside the gorgeous space and the owner happens to be there. That's too early. Now here's the moment. I have 30 minutes or so before my meeting. The logical thing would be to say, thanks, but I can't right now, maybe later. But instead, I found myself saying yes and spending 20 minutes on the FaceTime, walking through this incredible space. My mind racing with possibilities, completely losing track of time. I made it to my meeting with 3 minutes to spare. It went fine. Actually, it went really well. But afterwards, I sat at my office desk and had this moment of what would you call this existential confusion? Was it irresponsible? Should I have been more focused? Or was that exactly the kind of opportunity you're supposed to say yes to? The old me would have been furious with myself for not sticking to the plan. But that day I felt something different. I felt alive, like I was finally living in color instead of black and white. Some days everything feels crystal clear. The podcast isn't separate from Kado events. Kado events isn't separate from my interest in wellness. My job isn't separate from my creative pursuits. They all feel like different expressions of the same core. On those days, I can see how the skills I'm developing through podcasting, storytelling, connecting with people, creating content directly feeds into the events I want to create. How the mindfulness practice I'm exploring personally could become workshop offering. How my corporate experiences give me a foundation that many entrepreneurs don't have. It all feels intentional, like I'm building something slowly, deliberately across different parts of my life in a way that doesn't fully make sense to anyone else, but feels absolutely right to me. But then there are other days when it just feels like a lot, unclear, messy, like I'm moving in 5 different directions but not really getting anywhere. Days when I wonder if I am just fooling myself, if I should be like my friend Lisa, who decided to focus solely on growing her photography business, or on my other friend, Alex, who turned down every side opportunity to climb the corporate ladder more efficiently. And then I think what makes it harder is that from the outside, people only see pieces of what you're doing. They might say, "Oh, she's doing a podcast now." Or they'll say, "I heard she's planning events now." But they don't see the full picture. They don't see the internal questioning, the doubt, the constant back and forth. The 2 a.m. moments when you wonder if you're crazy for thinking you can do all of this. But they also don't see the excitement. The way your heart races when you imagine what these projects could become. The conversation that energizes you for days, because that part is real too. So I had to pause and really ask myself, what is this actually about? Is this about doing more for the sake of doing more? Or am I just someone who gets bored easily and need constant stimulation? Or is it about something deeper, about figuring out what actually matters to me? What brings me alive? What legacy I want to create? Because those are 2 very different things. I think we live in a culture that's really confused about this. We praise people for being busy, but we also tell them to find balance. We celebrate entrepreneurs who hustle 24/7, but we also worry about burnout. We admire people who follow their passion, but we also warn against being unrealistic. And somewhere in all of this conflicting advice, we lose track of simple truth. Maybe some people are just meant to be multidimensional. Here's what I'm starting to realize, and maybe you need to hear this too. Maybe I'm not someone who's meant to just do one thing. Maybe I'm just someone who builds slowly across different parts of my life in a way that doesn't fully make sense right away, but still feel intentional. Maybe the fact that I see connections where other people see chaos isn't a flaw. It's a feature. Maybe my brain works differently, and instead of trying to force it into a single focus mold, I should lean into its natural wiring. But here's the key distinction. This isn't about saying yes to everything. It's about saying yes to the right thing. The things that feed each other. The things that build towards something bigger, even if I can't see the full picture yet. I'll be honest with you, I don't have a clear answer yet. I don't know if what I'm doing is too much. I don't exactly know what all of this will turn into. I don't have a 5-year plan that ties everything together in a neat little bow. And maybe that's the uncomfortable part, not having clarity but still choosing to move forward. Because it would be so much easier to wait, to pause everything and say, I'll start when I know exactly what I'm doing. I'll pursue my dream when I have a perfect plan. Or I'll take risks when I am guaranteed they'll work. But here's what I'm learning, that moment never comes. I think clarity comes from doing, not thinking about doing. From trying, from putting things out there and seeing what works and what doesn't. From taking imperfect actions instead of waiting for perfect understanding. So if you're listening to this and thinking, yes, this is exactly how I feel. If you've ever felt like you're going in too many directions or doing too much, let me offer you a different framework. Maybe the question isn't, am I doing too much? Maybe it's, am I waiting for clarity before I allow myself to move? Because those are two very different questions with a very different answer. The first question assumes there's the right amount of things to pursue and that you've probably exceeded it. And it comes from a place of fear. The second question assumes the moments create clarity, not the other way around. It comes from a place of curiosity and growth. What if instead of cutting back on everything, you got more intentional about everything? What if instead of doing fewer things, you did them more thoughtfully? What if instead of waiting to be ready, you got ready by doing? This podcast is part of that practice for me, a space where I can figure things out in real time without needing everything to be perfectly structured or completely thought through. Every episode is an experiment. Every conversation is data. Every moment of sharing something before I feel totally ready is a small act of courage that builds my capacity for bigger act of courage. And maybe that's what this whole multidimensional life thing is about. Building your capacity to hold complexity, to move forward without all the answers, to trust that the path reveals itself as you walk it. So here's what I want you to know. If you're someone who has multiple interests, who sees connection across different fields, who gets excited about building something that doesn't fit into neat categories, you're not broken. You don't need to pick one thing and stick with it forever. You don't need to have it all figured out before you begin. You're allowed to be curious. You're allowed to experiment. You're allowed to build something that looks different from everyone else's path. You're also allowed to change your mind, to pivot, to discover that one of your projects was really just a stepping stone to something. The only thing you're not allowed to do is to wait for the perfect moment to start. This is Mike Check, and I'm not waiting anymore. I'm choosing to keep going. With the podcast, with Cato events, with all the messy, uncertain, exciting project that makes up this beautiful, chaotic life I'm building. Not because I have it all figured out, but because I've realized that having it all figured out isn't the point. The point is to keep moving, keep creating, keep connecting with yourself, with your dreams, and with the people who need exactly what you have to offer. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever projects are calling your name, whatever dreams you've been putting on hold until you feel more ready, maybe this is your reminder that you're as ready as you're going to be. The clarity you're looking for, it's not waiting for you at the finish line. It's hiding in the mess of getting started.